Yeah, I think we should possibly start.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who wants to start? Okay, I will. Welcome to the Q&A teaching workshop session. This is a forum for us to get to know each other a little better and also to discuss some issues that may have come up while you taught this semester. So we thought we would go around first to each campus. Everybody can introduce themselves, what program they're from, and if you're a new instructor, toss out like some questions or some issues that you have run into this semester to give us some fodder for discussion afterwards.
Let me start. Okay, I'm Steve Semkin. I'm one of the Provost Teaching Fellows. I'm from the School of Earth and Space Exploration. Hi, everybody. On next one.
Hi, I'm Christian Hoover. I'm a first-year assistant professor here in CB. Couple of things that I noticed that I would like to ask a couple of things about is students being or seemingly being ill-prepared for the course I'm teaching on the 400 level, even though they seemingly passed all the courses before that, including requisites. And also, I've taken a lot of classes on how to motivate students, but I'd like to just discuss a little more about that, because sometimes I'll get students missing one or third of the lectures, and they'll still expect to, to pass the class, which is
I'm Tomiko Azuma. I'm from the Department of Speech and Hearing Science in the College of Health Solutions, and I'm one of the Provost Teaching Fellows.
I'm Willie Savigny. I'm in Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College and also in engineering, and one of the Provost Teaching Fellows.
And I'm Karen Brune. I'm at the Barrett Honors College, and I am one of the Provost Teaching Fellows.
Hi, I'm Jen Clark. I'm Vice Provost for Academic Personnel.
I'm Max Underwood, and I am a professor in the design school and one of the
Fellows over there.
Hi, my name is Mai Trang, and I'm a first-year assistant professor in leadership and interdisciplinary studies.
I'm Elizabeth Castillo. I'm also a first-year assistant professor in leadership studies in the College of Integrated Sciences and Arts. And I would like to talk about how to make online teaching a little bit more experiential and interactive.
Perhaps we'll do the campuses in alphabetical order, although we've already violated that. Start with downtown.
Okay, I'm Barbara Lafford. I'm the faculty head of Languages and Cultures, which is the humanities unit on the downtown campus for the College of Integrated Sciences and Arts, and I'm a Provost Teaching Fellow.
Okay, hi, I'm Shelby Langer, a new associate professor here, and I am kind of 3 steps behind you all. I didn't teach this semester, but I'm gearing up for spring, and so just putting my syllabus together and figuring out Blackboard and all that.
Okay. And I'm Eric Johnson. I'm the director of the Center for Policy Informatics and one of the fellows.
We can't see you, Eric. You're sort of, if you move down a couple of chairs, we may be able to see you. There you go.
Yeah.
That was too far away.
But he showed up.
Polytechnic?
I'm Jean Stutz. I teach in the Applied Biological Sciences program in the College of Integrated Science and Arts, and I'm a Provost Teaching Fellow.
Hi, Vanessa Fonseca, new assistant professor in CISA. I teach Chicano and Indigenous literature, and I guess maybe just some questions I have are related to online teaching. Most of my students have expressed a desire to not do group projects and very, very interactive stuff because they have very busy schedules. But it seems that Blackboard is a place where you can do things like that. So how do you just sort of mediate what the students are expressing that they do and do not want with what you think should happen in a Blackboard online environment? And then secondly, the classes that I teach here at Poly are English literature courses, though most of our students are not in literature. So how do we also mediate or bring in the skills that they have in other classes into the English Lit class while still enforcing some of the skills that you need to have as an English major?
Hi all, I'm Mary Nimchek. I'm an associate professor in the aviation program here on the Polytechnic campus, and I'm one of the provost teaching fellows.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Steve Saul, and I'm a first-year assistant professor in the Science and Mathematics unit here on the Polytechnic campus. And one of the topics that I would be interested in hearing feedback from folks on is how to best engage and students and sort of lead discussions when you have really, really large class sizes. I'm teaching an 300 level ecology course this semester, and I have about 80 students in the class. So I'd be curious to hear what kind of techniques people have used, what's kind of worked and not worked for folks.
No, we're not.
Hi, I'm Jen from West, and I'm a clinical associate professor, and I teach environmental science.
I'm Jonas Gamzo. I'm a new assistant professor in the Thunderbird School of Global Management, and I'm thinking about. I'm also not teaching this semester, so I'm prepping for the next to get started next semester in the spring. And some questions that I'm kind of thinking about as I prepare are how to teach graduates I've never done before, and also I come from kind of a more like political science background, but I'm teaching these business students, so how to be a little more applied in my teaching.
I'm Pam Marshall. I'm in Math and Natural Sciences in New College, and I'm a provost teaching fellow. I'm Bertha Alvarez-Madigan, also a teaching fellow, and I'm in the Humanities, Arts, and Cultural Studies.
I'm Suzanne Dietrich, Applied Computing Program Lead in the School of Math and Natural Sciences. And actually, I had a question similar to an earlier one, is how to motivate attendance.
I'm Kara Thompson. I teach in Math and Natural Sciences. I'm a first-year assistant clinical professor. One of the things I'm interested in talking about is how to hold our online students to a high standard, yet still be fair to most of our students are non-traditional and have very busy lives, so how to kind of take that into consideration, yet still hold them to a high standard.
Okay, so that's everyone. I think that we see some commonalities in some of these issues that have been brought up. It seems like three central ideas are questions having to do with online teaching, questions related to perhaps larger classes, motivating attendance, facilitating interactive group discussion in a larger lecture section, and of course being prepared for the class, making sure that they have the background knowledge. So perhaps we could tackle each one. The thought was that we would start off with all of the campuses sort of interacting with each other, and then at some point we would just kind of limit the conversation to your local campus, because sometimes this is a little bit difficult going across all of the campuses. So should we start with perhaps the online portion? So I heard two people who had online concerns, and could you just elaborate?
Yes, well, so Eric is my teaching mentor. Hi, Eric. And he shared with me a great process he uses in his class where the class dynamics actually become the content of the learning. And it's really innovative, and I would love to find a way to do that online. The difficulty that I found with my first semester is that the students, to have success, they have to have like a rhythm to their course thing, and I feel it's less dynamic and innovative. And so how to create that organic, experiential in a structured environment without it becoming too prescriptive.
So teaching fellows that have online experience, if you could.
I do a lot of teaching online, and we all have many different techniques, of course, that work. So one question for Elizabeth is I'm not sure what that specific technique is. But there are a lot of ways to engage students that don't take, I guess it addresses one of the faculty members' concerns just now, who don't want to overload the students but want to keep it interactive, and that was a really legitimate concern. So there are a lot of things you can do with the discussion board that aren't discussions, like peer reviews and small group projects. If you scaffold them in terms of having pretty good directions and clear things for the groups to do maybe in stages, then it's not a huge amount of work for those groups, but they're still all interacting and engaging. So the question for Elizabeth, I don't know if that addresses your question because I don't know what that special technique is from Eric.
Well, it sort of does, but not quite, because one of the things he does is so that the students actually experience an inequality in the class through the way he got it. And so that felt sense of being discriminated against in a way, it helps them understand at the end the policy implications. But they don't necessarily make meaning of it right away. It's sort of as the class evolves that the aha moment comes. And I haven't reconciled how to have such a structured online with that organic, emergent learning.
I think you could. I think in that case, what I found is the same exact class when it's face-to-face versus online. You're right. Sometimes online it needs a little more structure. Even students who don't like structure face-to-face, they want it online because they're alone. They feel like they're alone. I guess one thing is you want that discovery, but you still want to kind of scaffold the things that the group should be doing or the kinds of discussion they should be doing. And then my own feeling, I don't know how Eric feels about it, is you'd really want to monitor that because it can go awry when it's online. People can misunderstand text.
He laughed.
I did, and we also found the mute button, which was stopping us from participating. One of the big things that we do sort of within the online environment is trying to create a sense of community within the class and investing a lot of time of having them sort of experiencing the same types of activities around the same time. And so instead of releasing all the content for the class and just saying you have to get through it eventually, we have a lot of sort of checkpoints that every single week there's a point that they have to reflect on someone else's ideas or they have to participate in a different way. And then if you're doing an activity or an event, so in my online class we have a group wiki page that they all have to sort of create and participate in. The following week is a reflection on that process because the class topic was about online collaboration and electronic governance, and so we tried to do this sort of mindset of learning by doing. And so what I would sort of emphasize is within your online classes, in what ways can you have those types of activities of, I want to teach this, but I want them to actually participate or to do it or to feel it or to experience it. And then the following week, make sure that they're checking in and reflecting, but they're doing this in a sense that you are paying attention to them, you are stewarding the entire class, and that you are responding to them sort of in real time as much as possible. Because what I found over and over again is the key to online success is making them aware that you care about them. And that's much more difficult than when you get the face-to-face interactions of they're checking in Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I have something to add to the structure element of it. I just for the first time this fall taught in ASU online. I've taught online before, but as I-courses, and having to, put the class in a 7.5 week session instead of 15 was quite a challenge. But it also helps a little bit with the structure. So for I'm teaching Spanish for the Professionals, and it's a 400-level course. Everybody in the course already speaks Spanish very well, but they still need to have more structured time. And so I simply require that there's a certain set of material they have to listen to on video, and then they have to react to it at certain points after seeing the short videos. And one week I have them do it individually and then reflect it. The next week I have them do it in pairs. And they know who their partners are halfway through. We see if we can switch it around a little bit. But it gives them a sense of community, even though there may be 20 people in the class. They can't get to know all 20 people, but you can make it so that they are partnered with at least 3 or 4 different people throughout the course. But you give them structure. You say, this is what you have to do. This is the kind of product we want at the end, and reflect on it, etc. So just having that, 1 week doing individual, 1 week doing dialogues, etc., and getting to know different people, I found very positive reactions to that on the evaluations. And I could see them really, because sometimes you get paired with somebody at the beginning you don't really have a lot in common with, and so, it would be kind of a death sentence for the entire semester. So you kind of mix it up a bit and make them get to know new people, and it's worked very well.
sort of naturally goes to another concern that was brought up at one of the other campuses regarding the online teaching and the students not wanting to have group projects. I think someone brought that up. So perhaps we can branch off into that area. And again, I will defer to the teaching fellows who have more experience with online classes.
Pardon me, do we know what the specific concerns are of the students? Said something about because they're busy, what they don't like group projects?
No, it wasn't that. This is Vanessa at Polytechnic. The question was, at the beginning of the semester, what I like to do is give students a questionnaire so that I ask them what their prior experience with the literature is, what they're excited to learn about, and then I ask them about activities they do and don't like to do within the classroom, and specifically in an online environment. And so based on those responses, I'm able to make a calendar for the class that incorporates things that they like to do and kind of shy away from things that they dislike doing or perhaps for good rationale cannot do. So I have a student who is in Afghanistan who doesn't have access to a video camera, so I can't do anything that requires him to record himself speaking with his face shown, of course. So I think about those things, but then I also wonder if should we be pushing these things despite the fact that they just don't work for some students, or is it like a class-by-class basis where we kind of assess the needs of the students and then plan accordingly?
Well, I had over 2,000 groups work online. So I've ran into these problems even to the degree I had deployed military personnel who cannot appear on video and working with groups, and CIA operatives who, of course, could not appear also. They have all successfully completed the assignments in their groups. I think the thing that was really important was, at the beginning, yes, you'll hear they don't like it, but it is really important to use small groups so people find a sense of community, anywhere from 6 to 8 students. Allow them to have an extended period of time to coordinate the group on their own time, understanding the deliverables of the deadline. And I've had no real problems. I mean, they seem to have worked it out. In some cases, we've had conditions where people cannot appear on the video. But the way we handle that in the group is they make video credits, like you do at the end of a Hollywood film. So they know who literally participated via Google Plus or Skype or anything. So I wouldn't shy away from it. I think that they do need to be exposed to it. And feel free to work with them on this.
Well, I would like to add a little bit to the question too. So right now I'm doing an exercise in which the students have to connect personally with their peers every week. And I do collect their explicit feedback as both teaching feedback and research data. So the number one thing that my students seem to complain about is the accountability of their partner and also the difficulty to coordinate over different time zones. And one thing that I did before I assigned the group project was that I give them a peer selection form. So they, based on the information that their peers introduced, including availability and preferred communication modes, they are allowed to select up to 3 people that they want to be paired with, and then 3 people that they don't want to be paired with. And I really honor their choices to the best that I can. So I found that that kind of alleviates the problems a little bit, and at least that they know that I try to honor their wishes so they don't complain as much. But overall, from the feedback, I think they found more learning from the interactive and the communication than all the trouble of going through the setting up the communication themselves.
Can I say something real quick? One thing to keep in mind is students will always sort of rebel against poorly designed assignments or what they see as busy work. And unfortunately, a lot of us that have been sort of thrust into the online environment have not been trained on how to translate or recreate the types of activities that we want to that work in a face-to-face environment into an online environment. And so what I think they've had a lot of experience with is poorly designed group projects. And so part of that is reimagining sort of what affordances do we get when we move into the online environment that give us new advantages? And so what is the ideal type of group project for this space versus I know I just have to have a group assignment? Because a lot of times I feel that it's just a checkbox that faculty think that they need to do. And so it is painful for the students to go through that process, and they've learned to resist it. But well-designed group projects, and we have a couple in our classes, and we can talk through what they look like, they respond to incredibly well. And they're very much open to it, like what Max was talking about.
Let me just add in here that we also have considerable support for online teaching through Ed+. Phil Regier oversees that, so there are additional modules specifically devoted to online teaching, just so you know that, for you know, as a resource for future reference.
Is that enough? Should we keep going, or should we move on? I will say I think students have a knee-jerk reaction to group projects. Like, they'll immediately say that they don't like them. And it doesn't matter if they've had positive experiences, the one that they'll remember is the one that was horrible for them.
I don't see them as being restricted to just online.
Right. No, that's right. In general, they don't like group projects.
They don't like it, no.
Well, I think the other one that's in there is the accountability that you used. And in our Greek class, we use peer grading, so that there is a percentage of all the grading that they do for each other, and they peer grade other groups. So all of that enters into, again, trying to build a sense of community.
I've done a version of that. I love that, and I'm going to do more of it. But the other thing is you can have, in larger groups, you can have them rate the contribution of their peers. The only thing is if the group is one, or I mean 2 or 3, you know, we can't do it because they're not going to criticize their friend. But if it's 6 or 8, they are very willing to be honest at that point. If it can be anonymous, and that entry, you can put that in as part of the weighted grade as well.
Carrie is at the Honors College. I'm looking at ways that we might do theses as group projects, simply because we've expanded our student body without expanding the faculty in a correlative way. And the one unit that I know is really successful at group theses, group projects, group work is Carrie. They do it all the time.
The business college.
Yeah, it's the business college. So I mean that might be a resource for us as we think about this, because it's the wave of the future, I think, collaborative projects.
Well, and for the person who was asking about how do you make students who are not English majors care about literature, I'm an English professor myself. I mean, that's also part of that collaborative, you know, the skills as opposed to the content. You use the content to teach the skills, the communication skills, the analytical skills, the, you know, and you couch it as, unlike other classes, this is really fun stuff. You get to read great books and talk about it.
Okay, we've gone silent again.
So, there were a few questions brought up related to large classes, and I'd really like to hear from the mentees who had some questions and maybe elaborate a little bit.
So this is Steve over at the Polytechnic campus, and I raised one of those questions. And I'm looking, so as I said, this past semester I was teaching in a ecology course that had about 80 students in it. And I'm looking for, and I had all these, and I'm a first year assistant professor, so I'm on the greener side of things. And I had all these kind of ideas and visions in my mind of having all these sort of discussions and whatnot. But the sort of number of individuals was a bit daunting for the first part of the semester, so I wasn't able to really execute what I wanted to do as effectively. And I have a few ideas for, and one of the tools I did try to use were the clickers, but I found them rather clunky to work with, and there were often issues with students' licenses going in and out of service. So there was a lot of kind of follow-up work that had to be done to make sure people got proper credit. And by the middle, after the midterm, I pretty much abandoned the clickers in the course. And I have some ideas for next semester using kind of index cards to get people to answer questions and participate. And then I'm also planning to pare down some of the material that I lectured to save, have a little bit more space time-wise within the course to facilitate discussion, particularly on scientific papers. I want the students to start developing, one of the skills I want them to start developing is the ability to read through and synthesize scientific literature and apply it to some of the concepts that we're learning in the course. And so I was just curious what other ideas or sort of mechanisms people have used to try and facilitate engagement and also kind of discussion with a group at that size, you know, or even larger.
Yeah, I'll mention I've taught large lecture classes up to about 220. Of course, there are larger ones than that, but yeah, I also for many years tried to work with clickers and ran into the same issues. The other problem with clickers too is that they're somewhat limiting in the kinds of questions that you can ask. I mean, they definitely have an advantage at times, and I don't want to say that they're not useful because they can be, but index cards too. I mean, if you have them big in a card that's blank on one side and blind on the other, you have some flexibility for them to perhaps make sketches or draw diagrams or something at some point. You do want to mix it up. The one point I want to make is that motivating students in these large classes, I think the easiest way to do that, the most effective way, and there's actually research that backs up the value of this, is just simply make sure that it's worth their time. Make sure that they not only earn credit for it, but they earn a proportionate amount of credit for the time they have to put into it. There's increasing research on the idea of what sort of goes under the umbrella of active learning, and there's a lot of research lately that shows that there are many, many very simple things you can do in a class that allow students to sort of take charge of their learning, and by definition, that's active learning. And one of them is that everything they do is worth something. Every effort they have to put in, there's no such a thing as anything that's assigned that's not worth it. I like to use index cards. I do sometimes worry that it does become somewhat routine, and when you have a class you meet 30 or 35 times a semester, you have to try to mix that up a lot if you're going to have it in every class. Breaking up a lecture for 15 minutes at a time and have them do some kind of activity. The other thing too is that you know, as far as engaging students, probably I'm not guessing I'm not the only one who does this, but you have cold call and random call methods where you can just call on students and you tell them that they are going to have to come prepared for discussion. Another thing is you can assign students to prepare for discussion. You can assign students to maybe some subset of students in the class to submit questions on the topic, maybe 2 weeks in advance. I like to do this. I haven't done it with 220, but I've done it with 60. You have some subset, maybe 5 students that is assigned to come up with a set of 10 questions for discussion 2 weeks in advance of the session. And then you get that and you review it, and then 1 week before the session you distribute that list to the entire class. And so everybody comes prepared to discuss some topic that their own peers have suggested. Just some of the things that I've found would be pretty useful, and it can actually work at least in a medium-sized lecture. I've never tried it with 220. It would be kind of interesting to try that though. So that's what I would say. The most important thing is just to make sure that it's worth their while.
Hi, this is Mary Nimchek over on the Polytechnic campus, and every spring I teach a class that's typically over 80 students. And I do something similar to what Steve has done. I divide them into groups, maybe groups of 4s, 5s. It kind of depends on, of course, the enrollment overall. But I actually assign all the groups research topics. So everybody's going to focus on one particular research topic each week. The first week of class, I actually go through all the groups. So everybody is responsible for presenting. Every member in the group is responsible for contributing. So not only are the students responsible to the entire class, but they're also responsible to their own group as well. So I keep tabs on who presented. The individuals are presented as well as the groups. After that, I don't call on all the groups, but it is random, similar to what Steve is doing, so they don't know. So they have to be prepared. and everybody has to be present in order to get those points. So that seems to work very effectively for me. I haven't had any issues with it. I've done it for the last several years, and I think students actually tend to enjoy that because it seems, maybe this is just typical of aviation, and it's mostly male students, but they get very competitive. And so, they try to outdo each other as to what they presented, the uniqueness of the topics that they're presenting on, and so forth. So, it becomes a big learning process for all of us, even including me.
This is Pam Marshall at West Campus. I have a couple of follow-ups. I wonder if, when you said that you want your students to engage in the literature, and I hear what Mary says about groups, if somehow you couldn't also use the technology. I know in Blackboard you can then assign groups, and maybe within those groups you can say, all right, based on the discussion today in your group, now follow up, and then people who didn't come wouldn't be able to follow up and get those points. Like you were saying, everything has to have a point value. So I think that there are ways to offload some of the work into the technology. I don't know about everybody else, but I have a large class of 131, and so sorting through 131 cards becomes difficult, but clicking through 131 essays, actually through Blackboard, I find is much easier because I don't have to alphabetize them, I don't have to look at the card, I don't then have to type it into my grade book. And so I find that using Blackboard and having them type in small essays or discussion boards, there are ways to do that so that then you don't have to make sure that the card that says Susie Johnson matches up with actually Susie Johnson Anderson, who she forgot her last name this week or something. And I've had that happen a lot. Of course, you can't read what their name is. And then another thing, I know that a lot of people are moving away from clickers, and I don't know how this is going to work. My dad just told me about an app called Kahoots, and it's K-A-H-O-O-T-S. So it's Kahoots, like in cahoots with a K. I don't know anything about it except he teaches large chemistry classes, and his TA says that it works. The thing about Kahoots, though, is that I don't think that you then register the students and can give them points. The idea is that on that particular day when they come, you say, okay, we're going to have a review for the test, and then it's kind of like it's almost like trivia, like trivia. And so I would think if people were competitive with each other, that that might work, and you'd see the reds and the greens, and it's supposed to be free all the time, and it's an app on the phone, and so at least then, if it doesn't work, the students haven't paid their money and not gotten it. Of course, then they don't get their points. You were saying, but it could be worth their while if you said, hey, these questions in our review, and we're doing Kahoots, are similar to, not exactly like, but similar to what might be on the test if it's a large course and you're doing multiple choice. So I don't know anything about these Kahoots, but this 77-year-old man told me about it, and so I'm going to check it out because.
Actually, I can talk a little bit to it because I just observed one of my instructors a couple of weeks ago using it. So she teaches the Religion 100 class downtown, Dr. Myrna Latouf, and she divided the course. There may be almost 50 students in the class, and she divided them into 4 or 5 groups, whatever. And then she had each group had to go up and give some kind of presentation on, one of the religions of the world or an aspect of it. And then after they gave it, they asked, kind of a quiz, kind of questions using Kahoot. And I believe it is singular, actually. I think the phrase in English is in cahoots with, but it's Kahoot singular. It's a gaming app you can get for your phone. And so each of the groups decided, okay, what's the answer? They had who, what year did this happen, or who was the founder, or whatever. Just kind of factually based things. And they had multiple choice, and the multiple choices were not that easy. You had to kind of think them through, like what all of the above or none of the above or whatever. And so each group got to answer. And you could see bar graphs, with group A thought this was correct, group B thought the other was correct. And sometimes all the groups got the same thing, and sometimes just maybe one group But it was really interesting when all 4 groups were all over the place in their answer. And so, you know, the student says, okay, let's talk about this for a minute. Why was this so confusing? Why did you have such a disparity in your answers? And so it allows a large class to be, you know, have camaraderie in the small groups. It also allows them to show their knowledge like that, and then it allows them to see whether they are in agreement with the rest of them. So, yeah, it's something to look at. I don't know about the logging of individual students. As I say, I didn't see behind the scenes, but the students were very engaged. It was a fairly large class. So, you know, it's not the only app out there to do that, but it's free. The thing with the clickers is that they were expensive, and, you know, but this is just a phone app, and it works very well.
I know a few K-12 teachers that really like the Hoop.
I just pulled it up. It's free.
Yeah.
Yep.
Session.
And just a reminder, we have a session on large group class best practices that's on the wiki. And so you can rewatch that video, and there's a lot of great content in that one.
Yeah, thank you all for your input. Appreciate it.
I think the only other one I would add, being that I teach this 500-person lecture course, is I think everybody suggests the other 5 ideas are great. And the one I would say is walk around, talk to the students. If they have their laptop open or are texting on their phone, hand them the mic and ask them to share the idea with everyone. You will see that they'll either start using the technology proper, i.e. that they'll be addressing the content, and very quickly it will shift to enhancing the content. And it will transform the class overnight, because it's just not just the facts and information, it's how do we apply it, how do we extend it, how might we, you know, and then they're engaged in the whole.
How do they respond early on when you do that to them?
They only do it once. You hand the person the mic, and then they read you their Twitter. And that's it. And everybody's closing their laptop. Next week, people start like, oh, let me look at. You know, you'll ask somebody, hey, can you research that? And then you walk away, you come back, and you talk to them about what you find. Oh, no, we could look at it this way. And you show them how to utilize instant communications, instant information in a critical way that then enhances everybody. Because I think the breaking into groups, you know, I take this 485 seat auditorium and just allow them to find space, write out questions, call on them. And I think everybody has the right idea with looking at a variety of ways and changing them up. I'd like to address the one that deals with politics and business. Because I think that taking your background is really important, and then seeing a new discipline through your eyes. How would you learn about it? How do you extend it? What are the political ramifications of business? And then specifically start utilizing real case studies. Whether it's Europe today, whether it's China, whether it's the United States, etc. And really just put these students in, now you're going to start a new business. How would you deal with the situation? Because I really think that you have a tremendous background to leverage.
And that's a way to focus the interdisciplinarity that ASU is so, is so committed to. In what ways can you use literature to think about other issues? How can politics intersect with this? I think it's a good fit, because you will have lots of students. Even if you're teaching, a course completely in your field, that's your expertise, you're going to have lots of students from other kinds of areas. So it's really useful to start thinking about ways of stepping outside the box of the discipline to think about how that discipline interacts with others.
And I always assume and let my students know that I'm assuming that because they are at university, they are scholars, that they are intellectually curious and adventurous, and that we all agree even if it isn't true, that knowledge is valuable for its own sake. I really try and foster that, wow, we're smart. Not everybody is smart, but we're smart. And so let's enjoy that. Let's enjoy that gift and investigate our world. And it's, yes, I know it's, you know, not everybody buys into it, but a lot of students buy into it. A lot of students want to be thought of as creative and intelligent and scholars.
Tomiko, can we use the next 15 minutes for sort of our campus discussions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
As soon as we figure out how do you turn off the mics.
Well, I don't mind the video. We can just mute you again. We learned how to do that.
Just found the mute button. So thank you again.
Thank you so
If you
much.
have any ideas for future sessions, definitely let us know and enjoy the holiday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Great, thank you.